Hey guys, welcome back to Like It or Not. We have our next guest here, and I'm so excited to have her on. It is Vania André, and she is a first generation Haitian American media professional with a background in marketing, public relations, and journalism. She's covered the Haitian community for 10 years as board chair and contributing journalist for the Haitian Times, one of the oldest publications in the Haitian community and leading media outlet covering the Haitian diaspora in the U.S. She is tasked with facilitating key partnerships with community leaders and groups. She also works for the nonprofit newsroom, The City, where she leads their communications and marketing efforts. Hi, Vanya. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's an honor having you on, and it's great, like I said, to have you here to be a part of the conversation. I think it's great to have Haitian media to be a part of this conversation. So let's dive right into it. I know yesterday we were just talking behind the scenes, and yesterday you were saying it was a dramatic news day for you. It was a very busy news day for you, especially with all that's been happening as a result of the assassination of the Haitian President Jovenel Moise, and a lot of the publications or a lot of the write-ups that I saw you writing about yesterday were related to how the diaspora, the Haitian diaspora, is going to be affected by this. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I got news of this yesterday, 5 a.m. on WhatsApp and Twitter. My phone was blowing up, and everyone was just in complete shock. Even though this was a president that was wildly unpopular, and there had been previous attempts at his life, I think what really shocked people in the diaspora was what this symbolized for Haiti's state of democracy and it functioning as its own sovereign nation. I mean, the last time that Haiti had a president assassinated was almost, I think, more than a century ago in 1915. So for that sends shocks throughout the community at large, simply because not simply, but I think mainly in part because after the earthquake, there was this feeling among the diaspora that Haiti would be able to come back and build back bigger and better because there was such an outpouring of support for the country in the wake of the earthquake, whether it was financial support, emotional support, people, leaving their jobs. I know a lot of my peers left cushy corporate jobs in America to go start nonprofits, businesses in Haiti to add to this recovery period that we all felt was happening. Like I'm having goosebumps even talking about it. So for us, we really looked at Haiti at this point as where it could change its narrative. Finally, it could stop being described as one of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere. Finally, it could stop being described as a country plagued with instability. And then to see now, 11 years after the earthquake, after billions of dollars were poured into the country, whether or not some of it made it to the country is a whole other conversation. But to see after all that support that this is where we've come to, it's just disheartening because even though, we're in a diaspora, we still have a very strong connection to our homeland, our parents' homeland, and we want to see the country thrive. And to see Jovenel Moise assassinated in his home at that, it's appalling because it's not something that you see happening regularly.
No, and the assassination was big, just like you said. We really, as Haitian Americans and part of the diaspora, we really wanted for Haiti to be seen, and we're pushing for it, especially us millennials. In the last few years, in the social media presence have been pushing for Haiti to be seen in a different light instead of as the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. And with this happening, it's just like almost feels like there's always something when it comes to Haiti, and that almost pulls us back. And an assassination is not just something that we hear of all the time. That's huge, a huge situation, and it just how easily it's happened. A lot of people are talking about the what ifs and the hows. Is there any information on the assailants that you've gotten as far as them saying that they were part of the DEA? Is there any further information as it relates to the assailants?
Sure. So there were a number of rumors swirling yesterday about who the assailants were. So the most prominent one was that they were DEA agents, and this came from a video that went viral. Essentially, you see armed men approaching the president's home, and they're screaming "DEA operation, stand down." Since then, it's pretty much been debunked, and it's thought to believe that it's mercenaries. For who, from hire, from who and where, not completely sure. We could hear on this video that they were speaking Spanish and English. Some of the rumors are that they may be mercenaries tied to Colombia, and rumors swirling around that perhaps Jovenel Moise had been involved in some type of drug trafficking. None of this has been confirmed. Again, these are all just allegations. But the Haitian National Police did report yesterday that they killed 4 suspects and apprehended 2, and that there are a few other more men that are out large that they're looking for. Whether or not these are the men that are actually responsible is a question that I'm hearing now within the community. There's always this air of suspicion when it comes to Haiti, and especially anything that has to do with any external forces, whether it be the United States, the United Nations, Canada, France. So what I'm seeing is that even though the Haitian National Police is reporting that they've apprehended these suspects, they've killed 2 people, they've killed 4 people and apprehended 2 others, I'm still seeing a lot of skepticism on whether or not these are the actual mercenaries that were responsible for this. And even if that they are, that still doesn't answer the question, well, mercenaries are a gun for hire. Who hired them? Lots of talk about perhaps this is an inside job. Lots of talk of whether or not this is something that was orchestrated from the business class in Haiti. Jovenel Moise did not make friends in that community. He spent a lot of his administration trying to take power away from the oligarchs and redistribute wealth in Haiti, which was not popular. So that's one theory that seems to be raising more and more as the conversation and story develops, that perhaps he just made too many enemies within the business class, and this was how it all came to head.
So right now, the country is under a state of siege. Could you describe or give us a definition of what exactly a state of siege is for Haiti?
So essentially, it's a version of martial law. The Haitian National Police and armed forces, they are responsible for the security of the country writ large right now. The national borders are closed. I believe the airport is also closed. Businesses are not open. Everyone is pretty much in their homes. And it's silence. And Haiti has been going through versions of this since 2019 because of all of the protests. So just to paint a picture for listeners and viewers that may not be aware, imagine at the height of the pandemic here, where everything was locked down, there were curfews, restaurants, businesses, everything is shut down. People are working from home, going to school from home. Haiti has been dealing with this for essentially 2 years. And that's what we're seeing now all over again. But to add to that is just a level of tension and a lot of fear about what's to come next in the coming days, because there will eventually be a power struggle because the line of succession is not clear. There are technically 2 prime ministers now, both of them who believe that they have claim to be the de facto leader and interim president. Our parliament is not in session. They've been dissolved since, I think, for about 2 years now. They haven't been acting. So what we're seeing in Haiti right now is a constitutional and political crisis, and everyone is just kind of looking at themselves, at each other, like, okay, what happens now? What happens next? So I think a lot of people are just going to look to the U.S. now to see, like, what can they push forward as far as making something happen.
So it's very interesting. You said a few things, right? And I want to touch on a few things. So let's talk about the two prime ministers. Right. Yesterday, a lot of news was coming out that he had elected a prime minister just the day before. And this was the person that was actually taking leadership and speaking to media and giving statements yesterday. What is this thing about two prime ministers?
Sure. Sure. So we have Claude Joseph, which is the current but outgoing prime minister prior to Jovenel Moise's death. And then we have Ariel Henry, who was the man that Jovenel tapped last week to be prime minister. The problem that we're seeing here now is one, Jovenel, obviously, he was killed, so he was not able to formally appoint Ariel Henry, even though he made the announcement that he would be doing so by decree. And then secondly, we have our parliament is not functioning. So it's essentially under our constitution, it's the parliament's decision, or they are the ones that have to approve the nomination, which wasn't going to happen because, like I mentioned, Jovenel was running by decree. And then now for this current prime minister, Joseph, for him, in order to be tapped as interim president, that also requires for the parliament to approve that, which again, is not in session. It's not working. So I'm literally speechless because no one really knows what to do when we're in this gray area and there isn't a functioning government to help lead us out of this. And then just to add another layer of complication, if you would bear with me, we have two versions of the Constitution now. And both constitutions have differing approaches as to what the line of succession should be in the event that a president is not able to carry out his responsibilities, or he's disposed, or he's killed in this case. One constitution says it should be the president of Haiti's Supreme Court, who passed away on June 23rd from COVID. And then the other says it should be the prime minister, and which I've just explained is not a clear-cut answer of who that is.
Wow. So it's just a broken system, as we can see. And the history of the broken system, also, a lot of people think historically, U.S. and France having their foot on the necks of Haitians, but also involving themselves in Haitian government. Do you think that actually plays a role in how broken the system is in Haiti?
I mean, that's definitely part of it. You speak to Haitian historians, experts. I mean, Haiti's history is inextricably linked to the U.S. From its inception, and the French, obviously. After Haiti gained its independence, it took almost 30 years for the national community to even acknowledge Haiti as a sovereign nation. They were not able to no one traded with them, no one acknowledged our currency. And then after we were finally acknowledged as a sovereign nation, you have these periods of years where the U.S. government is essentially influencing and placing puppet presidents in Haiti that pretty much answer to them. In 1915, you see the U.S. government invade Haiti, and they occupied Haiti, I think, for about 20 or so years. And then it's after that you see the Duvalier regime come in and a dictatorship. And so whether or not it was colonialism, we got rid of the French, but Haiti has had to deal with neocolonialism, imperialism. I won't go as far as to say that we're a failed state, but we're on our way there to be, because we're such a state that's heavily dependent on aid, whether it's from remittances from the Haitian diaspora or economic aid from the U.S., which in the past they have used as a bargaining chip in order to control the state of affairs and electoral process in Haiti. So the U.S. and Haiti will forever be intertwined, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Yes, and it just sounds like a relationship that's abusive, with the U.S. Having their hands in a lot of this stuff. But it's almost like they have to keep it as a dependent state in order to keep on abusing it and utilizing the resources for close to nothing, and just, keep it where it's at and present here in the U.S. that the country is so, as I was talking with my colleagues earlier before, that the country is so dependent, and they keep this poverty porn rolling in the media. That's what keeps all this news alive. That's what keeps it heavily just in. And when we speak of Haiti as the poorest country in the Western atmosphere, and you said, we are not. Haiti is not a failed state, thank God, but it can definitely be well on its way. Every time we see progression, something or someone or a government related to the U.S., if not the U.S., is usually putting their hand in something, and it becomes. We just go downwards on a downward spiral. I have another question for you as it relates to the Jovenel Moise's wife, Martine Moise, and the news of her actually passing yesterday at first that was circulating. And as I was telling my colleagues, I feel like that was almost strategic to have her to be able to get out of the country safely. So what are the updates on her and her process on getting care in South Florida?
So we know that she is in Florida receiving treatment. The last report that I heard that she was at first sent to Jackson Memorial Hospital. I don't know if she's since been transferred to another facility, but she is still in critical condition, and we're all just waiting developments on her health.
Yeah, this has been a very, very, this is news that shook us all. Like, whether you liked the president of Haiti or not, this is news that definitely shook us all. And we've been hearing things from the left and the right, from the middle, from our parents on WhatsApp. We've gotten news from everywhere, but I am so happy that we got a chance to connect with you, Vania. I'm so happy that we got a chance to connect with you and the Haitian Times. I absolutely love that publication. I love the background on it. I love that you guys have footage that's been going on. I know yesterday you guys did exclusive footage of gunshots in the area. There's just like so much going on. And before you leave, what do you think those gunshots mean? Do you think that's a message being sent out, or because I was very confused. Hearing the dramatic sounds of the gunshots yesterday, just in the area of Port-au-Prince, I didn't know what to make of it. So could you explain a little bit about that to me?
Sure. I can't say for certain who was shooting and why, but the past year in Haiti, gangs have been a very strong presence in Port-au-Prince and the surrounding communities. There was even a documentary that Vice did a few weeks ago showing how much control the gangs have in the streets. Mm-hmm. And it's just been constant gunfire between different factions going against each other. There have been several reports of massacres happening in small communities in the surrounding Port-au-Prince area. So I say all that to say that, yes, the shooting yesterday may have been tied to the president's assassination, but it most likely is just another day in Haiti. I hate to say it, because the past couple of months, that's what it's been like in different communities. It's shooting broad daylight. I think about just a week and a half ago, 10 people were massacred over the course of a day. Some of it was targeted, some of it was just passerbys, wrong place at the wrong time. So that level of gun violence in Haiti is very present, it's very real, and it's been going on for a long time.
All right. And before you get out of here, I wanted to take a look with you on what Joe Biden said. President Joe Biden said the words that he had, if we have that.
Reaction, Mr. President, to the Haitian president being assassinated.
You need a lot more information, but it's very worrisome about the state of Haiti.
Does the U.S. have a role in seeking justice? Mr. President, these hybrid attacks keep happening.
So a lot of people in the beginning of when we saw these protests happening before Joe Biden was even president, they were dependent on him. A lot of people in the streets of Haiti becoming president. Like I said, the country is very dependent on U.S. government, it seems as, and they were dependent on Joe Biden becoming president because they thought that would mean a great change that would happen also for them in Haiti. But in this instance, him just offering his condolences. A lot of people did take a shift when he did become president. A lot of Haitians took a shift because they felt like the things that he said he would do for Haiti, he didn't do. So what would you say about Joe Biden and his relationship with Haiti and the people who depended on him becoming president there?
I think, for him, he's in a delicate situation when it comes to dealing with Haiti, the Haitian American diaspora, Haiti politics, because on one side, there's always been a narrative in Haiti, U.S., stay out of our affairs. We do not want you meddling in our electoral process. We're a sovereign country. The United Nations had a presence in Haiti for more than a decade. One of the only countries that the UN had a presence in that was not in the middle of an armed conflict. So you have that one side, right, where it's like, okay, we're trying to respect that this is a country that their people have said, we don't want you involved in our politics. And then at the same time, when part of my friends, Ish hits the fan, it's like, okay, we need the U.S. to come in and push someone out. It's a tortured history. The U.S. had a hand at Aristide leaving. They had a hand at bringing him back. With Biden specifically, I think in the diaspora specifically, when he became president, a lot of the requests that he had was to, one, make sure that TPS did not expire and that it would be renewed, because Haiti was going through and is still going through such intense political, social, and economic problems that we could not have about 50,000 people leave the U.S. and go to Haiti. There's no way for the country to repatriate them. So I think that was a focus in a lot of it. I think, the Biden administration's relationship with Haiti is one that is just is constantly being reviewed and developed, because he does have a few key Haitian Americans within his cabinet, within his administration, and in his circle of advisors that I think they speak for the community and they're able to relay what the community needs. So I know today the United Nations Security Council will be having a meeting to discuss the situation in Haiti. Although Biden did say that the situation was worrisome, I believe I saw a statement where he put out saying that they will be looking to see what guidance that they can give. What that looks like, whether or not it's some type of military presence or if it's a contingent that they send to help facilitate talks. I'm not sure what that will look like. I think more is going to come in the days that follow. But he's in a delicate situation because we as a people have said two things that we want at the same time: leave us alone, but still come and help.
Yeah. And I can say for us being here as Haitian Americans and for them being in Haiti, it's like a different view that we have of Joe Biden. But, it's a little gray area for me. But Vania, thank you so much for coming on the show. Let our people know how they can find you.
Sure. I'm on Twitter. It's Vania André _ and visit HaitianTimes.com for more developments on what's happening with the assassination and just the Haitian community at large.
Thank you so much once again for coming on to the show. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. I definitely will be locked in and tuned in with the Haitian Times as the news develops. Thanks again.
No, thank you.